Hello, I'm Matt Peterson.
And I'm Rich Trappier.
And this is episode 49 of History on the Table. Rich, welcome back.
We're almost there.
50 is going to be a big one.
Yeah, we'll have to celebrate somehow.
Somehow we'll have to do
what's
something.
50? Is that like the gold anniversary or something?
Yes.
Or is it
I don't
diamond?
know.
Is it gold? I have no idea.
Maybe 25, whatever. But 50's coming up, but we're not on 50 yet. It's 49. 50 will be big. It'll be the episode before Historic Fest, and I feel like we should do something big for 50.
I agree. Yeah, we should.
Almost 50 months of doing the podcast.
Yeah. When did I join? About 20 or so?
You joined... I can't remember if you joined after our first kid or before.
I don't remember.
I think you joined after.
Patrick, when did I join?
Yeah.
Look it up.
Thank you. There you go. Perfect. Clickety clackety. He's on it. Well, welcome back, folks. I know if you're just a listener of the show, if you just catch us on your podcast feed or whatever, and you're not on the Discord, things are normal. We're a little late. It's the 1st of July when we're recording, so we're a little behind schedule. I had to push back for Rich. We were going to record earlier this week, but if you're on the Discord or you play games with me online, at least maybe you noticed, maybe you didn't. I have been absent. I've been on the mend, as I mentioned at the end of last episode, so it's been a very quiet month, and I know Rich has had a month as well, so I apologize in advance. This is going to be a shorter episode than normal.
Yeah, I've been busy too. Matt's been busy. I've been busy. I've got a big competition next week, but then July is my month where I kind of take off of everything, so hopefully I'll be able to catch up on gaming.
What a great month to do like a big meaty game in July.
Yeah. I've got Hungarian Rhapsody on my table right now. I was thinking about setting that up and playing through the campaign solo. Very good.
Very good. So again, it'll be a short episode, but next month we got a full one, and then the month after that is Historic Fest, folks. We're 1 month and 3 weeks away.
And I'm really looking forward to that.
Fest. Me too. So
I'm actually going to take the train this year.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah, it's because my daughter is in Columbia. She's coming with me, so she's just going to drive to KC, pick me up at the train station, and on Sunday, drop me off at the train station. I wish she didn't have to come all the way back to St. Louis. And that round trip from St. Louis to Kansas City is like $75. So
nice.
Yeah.
And probably there's some stops between KC and St. Louis, but it should be, hopefully it's pleasant enough that not dragged out. Should be a good time. Is anyone else, Chris took the train.
I know he did a couple years ago. I don't know if he's coming this year.
Yeah, you should hit him up, and then you can play games on the train as you drive to Kansas City. That's what you should do.
Case blue.
Yeah, well, folks, if you haven't heard, welcome to the show. And second off, August 17th through the 20th, 4 days of gaming in the greater Kansas City area. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. Talked with Mike Denson today, the designer of Last 100 Yards. We're going to mix up Last 100 Yards content a little bit. So instead of a tournament, we've got a monster game in the works. I kind of like the approach. He's going to do a full demo learn to play session all day on Friday, a little more structured, and then get a big old scenario roll in for Historic Fest. Should be really cool.
So multiplayer scenario, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you should be able to a certain extent drop in, drop out as you take over different commands and stuff. But I also really like the idea of Friday. Instead of, in the past it's just been Mike is always available to teach you the game. You just got to say, hey, teach me the game. He has said Friday is a demo and learn to play and all that stuff. So a really great chance to pick Mike Denson's brain, learn how to play the last 100 yards. Having a conversation with Mike Denson in game design is a highlight, and I highly recommend it. And, of course, you'll be able to grab dinner with Mike as part of our Dinners with Designer. Him and Mitchell Land both have space in their dinners.
Nice.
Very good. But, yeah, join the Facebook group, hop on Discord. Like I've been saying, where I just started ramping up hey, here's what we have going on. You can learn a game with 1/3 of Ham Tag. Greg Schmitkins is a great war game teacher. We have Next War Con, ASL. There's coin games. Learn to play coin games. Our buddy Mike Heckman does. What's the game he modified and plays every year?
Like the English game that one. I can't remember what he calls it, but I know it's like a medieval English game.
No, I don't think it's that. Or
are you thinking of a different one? He does do that as well.
It's some kind of like Roman game, I thought. Anyways, whatever.
Okay.
It's all on there. All kinds of great stuff. Go check it out. We'll see you in August. In the meantime, we've got a little bit of housekeeping stuff to knock out, what Rich has been up to this month, and then we're just going to dive straight into our featured game this month, which it's a repeat of Volko Ruhnke. We're going to Wilderness War tonight. But first, Rich, why don't you tell everyone what you've been up to this month?
Mostly singing. Lots of concerts, lots of rehearsal. We've got our big competition a week from today, actually. So I haven't had a whole lot of time for gaming, but I have been playing a little bit. So I did get a new game added to my shelf,
yes,
which is nice. It's still in the shrink wrap, but on to Richmond 2, which is highly anticipated. And I don't know if anyone saw, but apparently they didn't cut the maps properly, which happened to you in a game. I remember talking about that last year. I can't remember which one it was.
I think it was like a year and a half ago. I know the game. It was Roads to the Kremlin from Operational Studies Group. And I got there was a guy on BGG who got really upset about it. He's like, well, just cut your own maps. It's like, or I don't know, sell a complete product and like fix it.
Yeah, so MMP did not take that approach. They instantly said, don't worry, we're mailing you new maps, and those are already on the way. They're going to get here sometime in the next couple days for me. So it's a huge game. I am absolutely looking forward to playing it, but this month I haven't even taken out of the shrink yet, so
I just want to clarify.
That might be something I play next month.
Kevin Zucker, the designer behind OSG Games, was not the one to tell me. He did say just to cut it, but he took a much more civilized approach.
Yeah.
But also really didn't do anything to make the situation right. Basically, the maps are supposed to overlay with each other. They can't unless you cut them. Anyways, neither here nor there. MMP obviously took the better approach and is sending out new maps. But amazing.
Which,
on Richmond
the only thing that sucks for is like the people that did pre-order the game, but maybe they were later in the cycle or whatever, they're going to have to wait a couple extra weeks because they were waiting for their maps to be reprinted. So, and I'm sitting here, I guess I was early enough that I got it pretty quickly. My game's still sitting here in the shrink, but
it is what it is. But
hopefully next month, because I'm really looking forward to playing that one.
Yeah, that's there's going to be a lot of great stuff on Richmond too. I'm really looking forward to the Grant Tix Command stuff. In there, as I've mentioned before. You've been doing some reading. Yeah,
I read a book called Crucible of War, which is about the French Indian War. I wonder why I read that one.
Yeah, nice.
And have you read that one?
No, I went Wilderness War. I took a different approach, so that's good.
So it's pretty meaty. Probably more than I wanted, actually, which is interesting because, it takes place, obviously, here in North America. Was it the United States at the time? So the place names are somewhat familiar. Like when they talk about like the Ohio River Valley and stuff like that, obviously I know what they're talking about, but the names of all the forts and everything, I had no idea where a lot of them were. So a lot of it was a little hard to follow just because you're talking about a bunch of old French guys and a bunch of old English guys and forts that aren't even there anymore. It was very meaty. It was good. It was probably a little bit heavier of a book than I was interested in for that war. So it was good. Just wasn't necessarily what I wanted.
One of the books cited by Volko in his the works cited for design of Wilderness War, as was Wilderness Empire, which of course we'll talk about. But Rich, you've been singing. I see you've been playing a little bit. A game we've talked about some.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I talked about this last month, but Andy and Abyss is out now on RTT, so Rally the Troops, the website. So we finished up our first game and immediately launched into another one, and I was so close to winning. I'm playing the cartels this time, and I had the cartels need to have like more than 10 bases and more than, I think, 40 resources. And I was at like 60 resources and 12 bases. I was like, oh, I got this. And then they airstriked my bases and killed like 6 of them in one turn. So I'm probably not going to win at this point, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I mean, it's fun to have a coin game that enforces the rules and everything, and you can play it online. But I'm sure I said this last month. I'll say it as many times as you ask me. Coin games are just so much better playing live in person than they are playing online. So it's good that way, but you lose a lot of what is fun about a coin game.
Yep, agreed. It is great to have it on Rally the Troops. What a great tool for it. I can't wait to see what they add to Rally the Troops. I know we had a little conversation about all the potential for that platform, but yeah, it should be cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's about it for me.
Then that's all we have. There's no war game. Again, I'll be honest, a lot of my recovery time has just been, movies, reading, nonfiction stuff, relaxing, a little bit of work here and there, and not war game stuff. And so we're just going to dive straight into it. And we picked this game because of the Rally the Troops implementation, especially as for our featured game, and that is Wilderness War, a 2001 design from GMT Games, and as mentioned, Volko Ruhnke, covering the French. Oh my gosh, the French-Indian War.
Yeah,
and
that's what we call it. It's called the 7 Years' War if you include what happened in Europe as well. But yeah, French-Indian War.
Yeah, before we dive into the historical setting, I know I've talked about in this past, but just as a reminder, this was one of the very first historical games I played past Memoir 44. And my first go at this was not great. And so when it got on Rally the Troops, I was very interested because this is such a highly regarded game. It's in top 50 war games on BGG. People recommend it as a great card-driven game, that's what this is. And so I wanted to circle back to this, and I'm just ever since it's been on Rally the Troops, I've more or less had a game consistently going of this asynchronous, and it's been fantastic. And so yeah, this is French Indian War, and this is basically the Ohio River Valley, like Rich mentioned, and I'm sorry, you're going to hear my dog barking in the background, and my wife's out, so I won't be able to do anything about that. You know what? We might actually have to pause while I figure out what's going on. 1 second.
I guess this is the part where I sing to entertain us. Me, 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 la, 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 la. I would sing an actual song for you, but since I sing tenor, everything I sing is like a third above the melody, and it would just sound weird if I sang by myself.
Yeah, sorry about that interruption, but French Indian War, you have the High River Valley, and you're basically vying for control of that area, and you have both sides kind of springing up all these forts, as well as all the contributaries to the Ohio River, and basically Virginia kind of gets in a pissing match with France, and then that obviously brings in England, and then England supports Virginia, and then everyone goes to war.
And historically, the French did very well at the beginning of the war, and the British kind of came from behind to eventually overwhelmingly win the war. And the game represents that by having the French start off with, I think, like 3 or 4 victory points. I can't remember what the exact number is, but the French start off winning the game, and the British have to sort of claw their way back into it. And ultimately, the game will end when the British has always ended, in my experience, with the British exceeding a certain victory threshold of 10 victory points. So that said, I've never seen the French win this game, so it's always been the British.
Have you not played the tournament scenario?
No, I've always just played I don't know if it's the campaign scenario. I haven't played the tournament scenario. I've played a bunch of times as the French, and I played once as the British. Okay,
so historically this takes place between 55 and 59, and the tournament
1755. So yeah,
right. The tournament scenario is the back 2 years of that. So France has kind of already built up, and then England comes and kind of does their build up, and it's the transition from that. I think what is fascinating about this game, and Volko talks about this, but I swear I thought about this before I read Volko's thoughts, which was a boost of confidence, because I was like, hey, look at this. Volko and I are on the same wavelengths. So obviously he achieves his design goals here, is just all the different axes you're on when you're playing this game, because there's 3 theaters you're dealing with as both sides. Mm-hmm. And then there's 2 methods of warfare to line up with the time period that you have to consider as well. So you have your conventional regular armies. They move very slowly. You have to build them up. You have to use leaders. And then you have frontier raiding. And both of them can score you. So big picture of the game is you're trying to either raid or capture key forts and cities or cultivated spots to accumulate victory points. Whoever has the most victory points at the end of the scenario will win, and you can accomplish automatic victory in a couple different ways, exceeding the threshold at a time check or capturing key positions before the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think raiding is probably more important for the French than it is for the English.
Without a doubt.
They have more Indians, and it's also a way for the French to get victory points because from a traditional army standpoint, the French are not nearly as powerful as the English are in this game.
So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with regulars, like the British regulars. Obviously, they're gonna maybe not obviously, but the British will eventually build up to have these very large forces, and so you're dealing with moving them around, and then you're also dealing with these raids. But then you also have 3 theaters. You have Louisbourg, and the naval side of things. You have the interior, and then you have the far western side, and each one's going to play out a little bit different. They're all going to feature different terrain resources, have different, focuses, key points. And I think it's really interesting because a lot of my games will have, showdowns in the same locations, maybe even the same openings, doing some raids over in the west or something like that. But it all plays out a little bit different because not every game is going to feature a landing in Louisbourg. Maybe it features a bluff or something like that to keep some of those French regulars tied down there.
Yeah, and in order to go into Louisbourg, you have to do an amphibious invasion, which requires a certain setup and everything, and it's harder to do, obviously. I have seen several games where that just never happened. But sometimes the French withdraw their forces from Louisbourg to try to deal with threats in other places, in which case it sort of opens up to the amphibious invasion.
Right. Because the French aren't going to build up in the same way. If you start pulling, you may get some more regulars through a couple cards over the course of the game, but you have a lot holed up in Louisbourg, and if you pull them out too early, then you leave it wide open for the British. Now they still have to besiege it and all
which
that
is
stuff,
also not only Louisbourg, which is I think worth a couple victory points, but it's a quick run to Quebec as well, which is more victory points.
And so then there's also some key points in the interior as well that you can try to take as the British. But the interesting thing with the British, and a lesson I learned a very hard way, is you can go a very slow prodding pace. You can build up your fortifications to support your army as you march through, or you can skip a couple spots and say, oh, I've got the French right where I want them, let's go. But if you lose and you don't retreat to a cultivated, a built-up space, if you retreat into the wilderness, you're losing everyone. And if you lose regulars in combat, that gives victory points to your opponent. So you can get risky and you can kind of push the boundaries of this game, but you might pay the price, which I really liked and also learned the lesson very hard.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed about this game, and it kind of reminded me of Simonich's Zachban games in this respect, in that interception is super easy in this game. You don't even have to roll for it or anything. So you can kind of spread your guys out if you're playing the British. And if the French try to get raiders in to snag up those victory points, they're pretty easy to intercept and stomp down. And then even if they do get through, if you have your militia build up, the militia guys basically just teleport to anywhere you want them to defend against the raids.
Yeah, so like militia, you want them present in there, and you want a couple of them there to do that, and then you want to build up stockades as well. Like all of those things are considerations as well. Building up militia, building up stockades to prevent those raids, just making them that much more difficult, because having those modifiers, which is a great way to talk about this game. These are the big picture, but then mechanically, before we get into like the card driven aspect, you're going to be conducting raids, and you're going to roll on a table, and you're going to look at the type of terrain you're in. You're going to see if you have a leader raiding that's contributing, if there's militia present, and you roll a die, and there's a couple modifiers, and then you're just looking for successes and losses. And if you succeed at a raid, you're going to pick up half victory points. And then battle's not all that different. Obviously, there's a few more considerations. What type of troops you have fighting against each other.
Yeah, you've got leaders that have like a tactical number that they can use, and but for the most part, I mean, it's if you've played any war games, any hex and counter war games, you're gonna add up your troop strength, do a couple modifiers, and roll a single die.
And so the meat and bones behind this is a card-driven game. You're going to have a hand of 7 cards to start each turn, and you're going to either play that card for the event. Some of them are like reaction cards. There's ambush cards, things like that. Or you can use them for their points to carry out certain activations. You can activate individual units. You can activate leaders with a stack of units under them. And, of course, all those things cost different amounts. If you're activating Indians, they're half an activation. Leaders, their activation cost is their activation. And then you have all these events. And you're carrying out different... You can fortify, build forts in different locations, build fortifications. You can move your troops. You can restore troops under the right circumstances. And you can march around and conduct raids and just move around. So it's a derivative of the CDGs that predate it by a few years, like Paths of Glory and We the People. But I think it's an easier game than Paths of Glory. I haven't played the
I would say
Civil War one.
And as a card-driven game, I mean, there's probably a spectrum of games, of card-driven games, where the events in some games are more powerful than they are in other games. In this one, there's a couple events that are, pretty tasty, where you see that and you're like, okay, I definitely want to grab this for the event. But for the most part, I found myself mostly using the ops points instead. Some of that depends on what leaders you have available, because the better leaders can activate easier than the worse leaders. But the events are not overpowered in this game. There are some, especially like in some of the coin games, some of the event cards, you're like, oh, you would never, ever, ever do anything except for take the event on this card if it becomes available to you. It's not so much like this one. It's more, I find the operations points are more used, if not necessarily more useful.
Yeah, I think it also just depends on what state of the war you're in, and and that obviously makes sense, like what condition your troops are in and stuff. Like as the French, you're going to be burning through. At least I felt like going through those ops points a lot, because you want to you want to build up those victory points and hang on. Before the British come.
Yeah, and
so
I will
you're going to be using
say,
those ops.
Yeah. There were times, many times in this game, and maybe I'm just terrible at it, where especially as the French, you can have 3 or 4 cards left in your hand, and you already know that there's nothing you can do for the rest of the round. You just look at your cards that you have and the leaders that you have, and you're like, yeah, I can't activate this guy. I can activate individual units, but really it's not that useful to me at this point. So that can happen. That's part of having a hand of cards. But I've seen that happen enough that I took notice of it.
Interesting. I don't know if I had the same reaction at any point.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, everyone has different experiences with games. I never really remember, like, I'm sure it happened from time to time, but I never really remember thinking, like, now, I had a dead hand of cards when I was the British, and I lost my whole main force because I did the attack without having the supply route to fall back on.
Interesting.
But that's because I had no one left on the map until I could get some reinforcement cards. So that was my own doing.
Yeah, you are dependent on reinforcement cards. I mean, probably more for the British, but for the French too, because the French have a lot of Indian cards that they want to get played. And if, depending how the deck gets dealt out, if either side gets their reinforcement cards early, it can provide a pretty good swing.
What else? I do like a lot of your combats will probably result in some kind of siege. I mean, you might catch each other with your pants down out in the wilderness, but especially in the interior and obviously Louisburg, you're going to hit spots with fortifications, and so that's going to result probably in some kind of siege. Not saying everyone.
Yeah, and sieges will just sit there until you activate that stack again. There are cards that help you with sieges. And actually there are cards that help you with sieges both ways, whether you're under siege or besieging, but they're pretty rare. Like, you kind of got to get lucky to have those in your hands at the right time. Yeah,
and there's requirements on who can siege and all that stuff. You have to be in supply, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's, I mean, mechanically we kind of blew through it, but it is that straightforward. And I think what was interesting, even when I went back to the game on Realm of the Troops, when I first played this game, it felt very obtuse. I didn't know what to do, especially as the first time I played it against my brother, I was playing the British, and we started with the full thing. So we started like with the early war, which really, has the French doing the openings from what I remember. And I just look at the map, and my expectation was to like sit down and play a war game, which like if your experience is Memoir 44 and you're coming into this, like, I want to go shoot things, and this is very different. This is very
Yeah. So it's funny.
I don't want to say it's methodical because that has like a negative connotation almost to it, but it's not like you sit down and you're like, oh, here's my stack of units. Let's run out and let's go attack things. It's, you got to put a little more thought into it. And I don't know. So I think even when I went back to it, I felt the same way. And then the more I played, the more I felt like I was understanding and where I should be raiding, where I should be putting pressure on, where I should be sitting back. Like those things became a little bit more evident the more and more I played this game. I'm not saying I'm great at this game or anything like that. I was eliminated in the tournament, I think in round 1. That's still going on with Paul and Rexy. We won't talk about that. We won't mention it.
So I will say, and I think we talked about this last year, the first time I played this game, I did exactly what you did. I just sort of jumped into it without reading the rules. Yeah. And I was terrible and I was miserable at it. And then when it became our game of the month this month, I was like, okay, well, I guess I should read the rule book. And I played it 4 times this month after I read the rules and everything. And still, the game just isn't clicking for me. There's just a lot about the game that I do want to talk. One other thing I want to talk about mechanics is movement. Because of the different terrains. So there's mountains, there's rivers, there's cultivated areas, there's another one as well. I don't know. Wilderness is what they call it. Yeah. So if you get on a river, you can pretty much just go as far as you want. I think you get like 8 movement or something, which will take you well over half the map. Mountains will pretty much stop your progress. There are, and then as you read the rules, you're like, okay, well, if I stack, what do they call it? The terminology, like the round guys with the square guys, then you get extra movement. But I find that the movement is always sort of frustrating to me. Like if you do an individual leader, you can pretty much move him wherever you want. But the guys that you're trying to get into position are often going to be hampered by terrain, which, you know, that's a game design choice. I mean, obviously you're dealing with mountainous areas and that's the way it goes. But there were several times in the game where you have a limited hand of cards and these guys need to get from here to here. And you're like, what's going to take me 3 cards to get them in position? And they're not doing anything where they are right now. Or it's going to take me 2 cards or an extra card just to get them back to where they're not going to die this winter.
Yes, and I think that's some of I don't disagree with you, and I think you're right, but I think that's some of the like brilliance of it, because if I sit down and I'm looking to play a war game, like I'm going to charge out and go do battle, but that's what I mean, there's more to this. Like,
I agree.
Okay, I'm going to go do battle, but I can't get caught out in the winter in Little Seneca River, you know, up in near Ontario and stuff like that.
I
like
100% agree. And here's my thing. I love that about Nevsky. I don't know why I don't like that about this game. I'm not sure, because I see some of the same mechanics, that the planning and having to think several cards ahead. In Nevsky, I love that. In this game, it frustrates the hell out of me. I think part of what it is, so I'm very stubborn. The first game I ever played in this game was as the French. And then I just kept hammering it as the French, like I'm going to figure out how to play the French in this game. And the French are hard to play in this game. So I think I was getting more and more frustrated. And then when I finally played the English, I played against my daughter who hadn't played the game. I was sort of teaching her and we were playing together, and I just steamrolled her. And so like every game that I have played in this game have been the English steamrolling the French, with me mostly as the French, but once as the English. And it was just frustrating.
I don't know if it's, I think I gained a lot from the playbook, and there's a couple thoughts I want to go back to. I don't know if I loved playing the French when I got back into this, but I certainly appreciate them now, just because I think they have to be aggressive.
Really?
They can't just sit. I think so, especially with the rating.
I think they have to be defensive, which is why I think it's frustrating as the French, because I think it's the only way to win is not to play. I think the French, you want to try to do some raiders, but the raiders often get intercepted. I think it's the French, you know, you do start off with the victory threshold, and then the English just tip it away from you. But I think it's the French. I'd be curious to know, you know, the people that are actually playing this in a tournament scenario, how they're playing the French, because I haven't figured it out.
I don't know. I think early on the French do have to be aggressive, and they have to look for areas to cut off British supply. You can't sit in Ticonderoga for all game with like a death stack and, keep
That's true, because
5 regulars there. And so real quick, you did mention the square pieces and round pieces. So square pieces are always going to be regulars, and round pieces are going to be auxiliaries, which are going to be, Continentals, Rangers, and North American Indians. And then you do have some square militia forces as well. But, you talk about like the 2-card setup. I particularly enjoy it. And this is something like I gained from the playbook that I wouldn't have really done before. But let's say you're going to do a raid in the West as the French. Like, I'm going to use a 2-point card to pick up a leader for 1 point and 2 separate Indian for a half point each, so 2 of my ops points, and then I'm going to park them all on the same mountain, so the next card I can turn around, activate the leader, pick up the Indians with them, and go raid wherever I want. And that's going to be before, if that's your opening, that's before the British has a leader and regulars running around to intercept or anything like that. Maybe they have some militia, but I mean, militias are just going to give you a -1 modifier. And so, like, when you start picking up on things like that, like setting up the set pieces, like, you have to set up the set pieces for your big regular army for sieges, but you can also do these little set pieces with raids as well, where you're effectively meeting somewhere to then launch the raid. And yeah, it takes 2 turns, but it's not like the British are just going to run around all over the place and just be able to respond anywhere.
That's still,
I don't know. I don't
early
think
in the game you're talking about, though, right?
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're talking
I
about
think
before
there's
the British
still
have leaders.
Yeah. So a similar pattern, I'm not going to say this happens in every game, is like you're raiding in the West in Virginia, Western Pennsylvania, that type of thing. And then the Brits kind of respond. Okay. And then the Brits start pushing through, like west of Ticonderoga and through the middle up towards Oswego and stuff, which is a spot they want to capture. Well, then you start counter raiding there, I think. And you kind of plunge down into the middle, like down towards central Pennsylvania, and then maybe you're starting to do things on the east side. And yeah, you're right, it does take a lot of movement points, but they're not going to be able to put stockades everywhere. They're going to get a lot down, but there's nothing stopping you from raiding down into Massachusetts, and so you got to keep that pressure up.
There's Brits down there if the English are playing right, and they're just going to intercept your guys, in my experience.
Yeah, but then you just got to like.
And if there's militia,
I don't think the Brits
you don't
can
even have to intercept
that thing,
because the militia just show up.
Yeah, but that's only a -1 modifier. I mean, like, you got to take those chances. And again, I'm not great at this game, but I think, like, I did not like playing the French when I first started either. Mm-hmm. But I've changed on it. Like, I do like playing them. I think it's an interesting puzzle. I'm not disagreeing with you in any way. I think we've had slightly different experiences on the game, which is good,
sure we have. And I think it'll
happen.
Be an interesting discussion in a few minutes, because I'm at the point where this game where I feel like I've given it a fair shot, and I just don't like it.
I think that's
yeah.
Look what I said. I still think when I came back to it that it felt a little obtuse.
Yeah.
It wasn't abundantly clear what you need to do with either side.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with like Lewisburg and Halifax and stuff. Well, I mean, that's a whole nother puzzle to tackle as well, that's where the amphibious stuff is going to happen. All right. Any other thoughts about like the gameplay?
I think that's it. I mean, I was thinking about this. I know we're not quite at the ranking yet, but thinking of other games that I've played. So you have played Bayonets and Tomahawks, but that's not on our list yet, is it?
No, it's not.
I really want to play that one. And I think from what you've said anyway, it has a little bit of that same mechanic where regulars versus irregulars, right? Like the triangles
more
can only do so
like
much.
That, yeah, they can win a battle, but they can't inflict casualties. It's an interesting mechanic.
I know we talked about A Few Acres of Snow, which is another card-driven. Which we didn't rank very well, but we'll get to that later. I was just thinking of other French Indian war games. This is really those two are really the only two I've played, because I haven't played 1754, which is sort of same era. That's a little earlier.
Montcalm and Wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like bayonets and tomahawks, and since it's not on the list, I think I like this more, which was interesting.
Really?
I that's what started the whole tournament conversation. Was I think I posed the question on Discord, and Mitch and Rex clapped back with that they like Wilderness War more. But with both of them having fresh plays, I like both of them a lot. This just feels like a more interesting puzzle, and your gains in bayonets and tomahawks are basically reset every winter. I mean, you can hold stuff, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of planning, and it's a very long grind.
Okay.
And it feels like even a better way to win the game is just have an automatic victory than do the slow grind of picking up these pieces and then kind of I don't know.
In this one, when winter comes, you have attrition, which maybe you have prepared for and maybe you haven't. But
right.
Other than that, there's not any major change at wintertime.
Yeah, right. It's not like you have to go all the way back to Montreal or something like that. It's you better be in a cultivated space.
The Indians, I think, go home, and the leaders get to retreat to wherever they want to go.
Yeah.
But that's not a big deal.
Yeah, I just real quick, flipping through the rule book, there's not much that's we haven't talked about, just broad strokes mechanically. Obviously, there's more to this game. Sieges we didn't really touch on, but you're trying to reach a certain level in the sieges, and then you can finally assault the fort. We talked about how easy raids are. Supplies, you basically have to track back through fortifications or cultivated spaces. It's pretty easy to track back, and then you're just trying to accumulate those victory points by eliminating regulars, conducting raids, or taking key spots that are worth a certain amount of victory points, or forts, which is interesting. If you build a fort out in the middle of nowhere and then you don't support it, that fort becomes victory points. So you can't just build a fort willy-nilly.
Right. Yeah.
If you lose it, you're giving up points.
So one thing that I was reminded of as I was playing this, so I was obviously, I've been very frustrated playing the French, and I got to the point where I was like, I don't think the French can win this game. And I've played 5 times total, and it's never even been close. The French have overwhelmingly lost every game that I've played, with me only playing the English one side, but that's my experience. And it reminded me, so when I was playing U.S. Civil War a few years ago, this is probably even pre-COVID for the first times, and I felt that way about the North with the moving victory points and everything. I'm like, I don't think the North can win this game. So I played against a guy that knew what he was doing, and I was like, I'm going to play the South. And he played the North, and he completely steamrolled me. So this is a game that people play it in a tournament scenario. I haven't played that particular scenario. If I play again, that'll be the one.
But
I would. Obviously, knowing what you're doing certainly helps, and I don't think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, again, going back to, it's not abundantly clear to know what you should do in this game. Which is maybe my biggest knock against it, because mechanically for a card-driven game, I really like it. It's really sound. But I think it's rules light, but execution muddy. Yeah. But that's great, because I think it's something interesting to unwind.
Yeah. Rules light.
Oh, I shouldn't say rules light.
Yeah,
rules,
I mean,
that was too
the
generous,
movement rules with the terrain, I'm constantly back in the rule book. And if I wasn't playing on Rally the Troops, it would be 3 times as hard at least. Because every time I pass through a piece of terrain, I'd be like, do I have to stop here? Can I move 1 extra space? How does this work? That was something I found myself looking up a lot, even though Rally the Troops was enforcing rules for me.
Yeah, that is a little bit different. Like you said, leaders can just kind of fly around, and it kind of depends on your stat composition on where you can go on land and stuff. But well, I mean, that makes sense as well. I mean, boats and river access and fortresses are major themes of the era, so I guess that checks out to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's talk recommended reading, because I chose. You did Crucible of War, which I've had recommended as a great one to do. I did Wilderness Empire by Alan Eckert. I talked about it a couple episodes ago. And I did this in paper. It's a thick one. It's a big one. And what's interesting is Volko refers to it as the Shelby Foot of French Indian War, which is interesting. It's not 3 volumes, but it is dense. I did not know. He does give warning that it should be used with caution. I found it very readable. I enjoyed it. That's all I can say about it. Obviously, someone like Volko's poured all this time in developing Wilderness War and has a strong interest in Virginia's involvement in it. Knows way more about it. So that would be my recommended reading. Volko obviously referenced it, but he says, use it with caution, or at least approach it with caution, which is what I would say with any Shelby Foote work as well. So I guess that checks out.
Yeah, Crucible of War, similar. I mean, it was heavier than what I wanted. It's definitely not a 3-volume set. It's not that heavy. The thing I did like about Crucible of War is it went into English politics, which influenced a lot of the decisions that were made. It was very much told from an English point of view, not a French point of view. So it was good, though, which obviously Crucible of War is sort of the whole... Like, if you want to talk about the theme of the book in general, is that winning the 7 Years' War is what started the American Revolutionary War. So that's kind of the theme of the book, and it's good.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, Volko recommends it. I think what's interesting is he provides a little feedback on these books, which I actually really like because not everyone does this. He said that it's just maybe a little too critical of the commanders.
Yeah.
I didn't read it, but
yeah, it could be.
That one also comes well recommended. I would probably lean towards, if I did it over, I'd probably read Crucible of War, just knowing those couple things. But if you go with Wilderness Empire, I thought it was just fine. Very good.
Yeah.
Long, detailed. Like tons of detail about the construction of forts early on and the French interaction with Native Americans and like adding too many forts and all the names, and it was a lot of detail. Anyways.
And it is fascinating historically. I mean, the construction of those forts that were really unsupportable.
Right.
I mean, they built all these forts that they had no way of supporting at all. And, you build a fort, you feel safe out there. Well, here comes a French army, and that French army might be like 200 guys, which isn't that big, but you've got 25 guys in your fort, and they're like, oh, we're just going to burn you down.
Yeah. We will win this.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I think so. Big picture before we rank it on the game, I really like this. One of the best card-driven games I've played. And this 3 different areas of conflict with 2 different ways of handling it. Traditional army versus raiding. Again, it's a little obtuse when you first... I keep using that word. I got to find a different word other than obtuse tonight. It's a little muddy when you first look at it, but I think once you do start to see the pieces in motion, I really enjoyed that. So I like this blended type of warfare with a pretty straightforward and quick playing design, especially with Rally the Troops. I mean, you can really blow through this thing in Rally the Troops, and it'll let you make the mistakes. There's no takebacks and there's no warnings like, are you sure you want to attack without supply? So just be mindful of that. There's no one coaching you like, I want to do that, because it's going to happen. So overall, big fan.
Overall, I'm not a fan. So I didn't like the game very much. I'm not completely giving up on it. I think I will no longer be interested in playing sort of play-by-email game on Rally the Troops of it. I think if I had the additional interest of playing live against someone, that might be enough to cause me to play the game again. But like if you came to me right now and said, hey, let's play in Rally the Troops and we're just going to do this sort of play-by-email kind of thing, nah, I'd rather play something else.
Okay. Well, that's fair. Different strokes, different folks.
Yep.
This is the most we've disagreed on.
Absolutely. I think it is, which will be interesting.
Okay, so so folks, we have, I guess before I dive right into it, folks, we have a list. We have a list of every war game ever made, ranked from best to worst. Right now, it's 1 through 69. We're about to mess up that magical number by adding game number 70.
We can say nice one more time.
Yeah, nice. We're going to have game number 70 tonight. It's going to rank somewhere between the U.S. Civil War and Zeppelin Raider. I'll let you figure out which one's the best, which one's the worst on your own time. And so, yeah, Rich, how does this work? We put on blindfolds and we turn on the clay wheel and we just stick our hands out?
That's right. Yeah. Whatever comes out, comes out. And we're just discovering where it is already on the list.
Yeah, this is 100% completely objective subjectively. We just close our eyes. We're merely the sculptors of the list, folks.
Yes.
That's all we're here to do. So this is it, the every war game ever list. All right, so measuring stick. I think we start with Labyrinth as comparing this to. Now, I would be above Labyrinth, but I would.
Where's Labyrinth on the list? I gotta
Labyrinth's
find
down at 42, right below Reds, Brotherhood and Unity,
Okay.
All Bridges
All right.
Burning. All games that
Good. See, I was
like.
afraid that you were gonna like start in the top 30 in this game, and that we were really gonna have to fight.
Now I could go higher. I could go higher, but I'm not going much higher. Like I really like it, but we have 69 games, nice, on this list, and we've talked about it. This game is our list is top heavy. Like 42 is over halfway down, but that's a great game.
We know are going to be decent.
So 42, Labyrinth is there. Neither of us were crazy about Labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where I really like Wilderness War, Labyrinth got big points just because of the design quality. I think we both said it's not a game for us, but we realized like how well it's designed, and that's why it's there. I personally think it's better than Brotherhood and Unity, which is at 40. But I think Labyrinth, another Volko design, is probably the measuring stick. It's not. I wouldn't put it up at Nevsky or Almoravid levels.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, people have probably heard all this before, but there's a couple different factors. I mean, one, we are really trying to put it where it is as the quality of the game,
right?
And how much fun it is to play is a part of that, but not all of that, because. I was joking on the Discord trying to decide which one I like better, this one or Zeppelin Raider. And that was obviously an exaggeration. But 100% truth, if you come to me at game day and you slide a few acres of snow and Wilderness War in front of me, I'm going to pick a few acres of snow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't like this game. I'm not going to say it's better than a few acres of snow, though. So... which is why I would have a hard time putting it above Labyrinth. I think Labyrinth is a better game and more fun, even though I'm not crazy about Labyrinth. I would go even Washington's Crossing, which is another one that was like our sort of dollar store GCACW. I'd rather play Washington's Crossing than this one, and I think that's where I would go. I would put it below Washington's Crossing, above Red Flag for Paris, over Paris. That's where I would go.
Okay. And you're fine putting it above things like NATO Air Commander, Captain C.
Yeah, NATO Air Commander is more fun, I think. But, yeah, I think so. I think I would probably say this is a better game than NATO Air Commander.
We're going to have to I don't know, Rich. Like, I like this so much more than Labyrinth.
Do you? So maybe Labyrinth needs to go down. I don't know. I think Labyrinth is probably in the right place. So you would put it between Reds and Labyrinth?
I'd probably put it above Reds.
Oh, but below Brotherhood and Unity?
As far as card-driven games go, I'd probably put it above Brotherhood and Unity and stop there.
I would take Brotherhood and Unity above this one 10 times.
If you'll give me above Reds and Labyrinth, I won't push above Brotherhood and Unity.
All right, I think that's where we'll have to go. I think we'll have to go at 41 then.
I mean, that's the most we're going to agree on this.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I 100% agree with this. So Rex,
and I don't either, so there we are.
Rex, save your angry email. You can blame Rich 100% for this one. Although, Rich, you're also to blame for some other blunders on those lists.
I'm on John Brown's list.
You can submit your complaint to blamerich@gmail.com, and I'm sure he'll get right on that. I do think this is a better game design than Brotherhood and Unity. I'd rather play All Bridges Burning, but that's just because I'm all horned up for that game still love it. But then you're talking really crowded territory, like you above a Zokbon or anything like that.
5 spots up from there is Men of Iron Tri-Pack.
And I think, Rich, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm just not a huge CDG player. I enjoy them, but if I can have my meat and potatoes Hex Encounter or some kind of more innovative design, there was a point in time when CDGs were the innovative thing, right?
Sure.
But like Nevsky and Almoravid, that's doing really cool things. Atlantic Chase, like that's new and different. And I've seen the CDG thing, and that's not a fault against. I mean, Wilderness War is 22 years old. We're gonna have the 25th anniversary of Wilderness War game design in just a few years. So in 2001, it was probably blowing people's socks off. But like I've played other CDGs before I dove into this, and so like for my personal taste, it's always gonna be hard to rank up a card-driven game. That's just my own bias coming through.
No, I agree with you. I mean, CDGs are, I think probably actually for CDGs, and this is a very generalized statement, but I would think the lighter ones are probably better because they make for a nice, quick game day game.
Well, that's how you play the tournament scenario.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to try that sometime.
I mean, you gotta know it to get it done in a couple hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you sit down with two people who really know the game, you could be done with the tournament scenario. And
yeah,
because what is that? That's 21 cards.
Is that what it is? It's 3 rounds. Like I said, I didn't play that one, so yeah.
Good. Well, there it is, folks. Wilderness War number 41 on our list, which puts us at 70 games. How many games do we have left to go, Rich?
Well, we got choices. I'll give you 2 choices. We can either do 70 more, or we can rate every game that either of us own.
Okay. I thought it was both of us own.
Yeah, both of us own, yeah. And On to Richmond 2 is now on that list.
Well, I don't know about all that, Rich. I do know that we have one more game. At least that's next month's game. Yeah. Episode 50.
The bicentennial or semi-centennial, I guess.
I don't know if that's the right use of that word.
It's one of those words.
So, folks, here's how it works. It's been a little bit different, and like I said, I've been out of commission, and things have been quiet, but things are returning back to normal. Like I've got not gonna lie, a little uncomfortable in this chair, but the more and more I do it, the more and more I'm back to normal. So things should return to normal. And to start with that, we're back to our patrons deciding what games we're going to play. Now, Rich and I, we put our own little spin on it. And what we do is Rich and I are each going to propose a game that both of us want to play next month for July. We'll throw in some other games for your consideration. Sometimes those other games win just outright on their own and surprise both of us. Like Almoravid won out of the blue, I think. And you get to go vote by going to patreon.com/historytable. Join for as little as $2 a month if you support the show. Helps pay all the recording software, all of that stuff, and just support us. You can do that, patreon.com/historytable, and then you get to vote. And then if you join enough, you get to pick a whole game. And just go support the show if you want to. If you want to vote, that's enough of that. Rich, July is episode 50.
It is. So I wasn't even thinking about the episode 50 thing, but I was just thinking that next week is 4th of July, and I usually try to play some sort of American Revolution game. My first thought was Liberty or Death, but then I thought, we're pretty much straining into a Volko Ruhnke podcast at this point. So I decided to branch off of there and see where I could go. I thought about a Battles of the American Revolution game, but then I thought, Flying Colors would be good. That's got some American Revolution stuff in it. It's got some good naval battles, and I'm always up for good naval battles. So that's my pick for this month is Flying Colors.
Rich, turn the music off.
All right. Dead silence. Are we about to get a mic drop?
I think it's time.
What time is it?
We've been doing this for 50 episodes.
Yeah.
I think
Zeppelin
for at least
Raider 2?
I'm sure that exists. For at least 47 of those episodes, I have been a fan and enjoyer of one of the best tactical games ever designed.
Oh boy. Wait, hold on.
I think it's time for Panzer Grenadier.
Yes. Oh.
No.
Wait, something better than that?
Something probably much better. I haven't played Panzer Grenadier, so can't comment on that. But somewhere around episode 1 or 2 or 3 of the podcast, I proudly declared I have no interest in Advanced Squad Leader. somewhere around episode 4 or 5, I went balls deep into Advanced Squad Leader and got as much as I could, and then went on to be the 2019, I think, maybe it's 2018, my trophy's somewhere, Kansas City March Madness starter kit champion.
That's
there was
right,
only 2
you
participants, but I won. Since that time, you and I have tried to play some ASL.
Yeah, we started one, didn't we?
We started one. Well, I think we've also played some others. I've played plenty. You play all the time.
Oh yeah.
I think it's time. We're 50 episodes into this. We know it's your favorite game of all time. We know it doesn't stand a chance against even cracking the top 69. But I think it's time that we rank Advanced Squad Leader.
Wow.
I don't know exactly how we would tackle that in an episode. It's so hard to do.
Yeah.
I think maybe we just talk about our journeys a little bit, what we like about the game. It's not like we can... I don't know. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Don't threaten me with a good time. I mean, if we're going to play ASL all month, I'll play ASL all month because after, I've got no rehearsals next month. I've got a clean slate in July.
I think it would be a good time for me to pull it out and bust out what brought me into it, and that's the Korea scenarios. I have played Korea so when Korea came out, that's why I bought ASL. Since Korea, I've played it finally. And I have enough pieces to at least play some of the scenarios now.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I actually don't have the Korea module, but I've got most of the other ones.
Super Bazookas is a fun scenario right out of the box.
Yeah.
Well, not right out of the box because you need like 10 other boxes. But
yeah.
Right out of the
ASL.
10 boxes. So yeah, there's my pick, folks. All right, Rich, you can turn the music back up.
All right. There you go. You heard it here, people.
Now, if ASL doesn't win, that's fine too. At some point, we'll do it just out of respect for Rich and the 8 other people who play ASL. We'll do that. Yeah. So if you want to vote, go.
There's 8 of us, but we have a collective $937,000 worth of stuff. So
each.
Yeah.
Go vote. Advanced Squad Leader, Flying Colors. Oh, Rich, if you want to do, we should do the American one.
The tri-pack?
No. Flying Colors.
Serpents of the Seas? Is
yeah.
that the one?
Do you not have that one?
No, I don't. That one's hard to find. I've got
It is hard to
Blue
find
Cross
unless
White Ensign, and I've got the base.
Hard to find unless you pick up a copy at HistoriKC Fest from that amazing vendor. I don't wish they were coming back because it was tragic circumstances that brought them to HistoriKC Fest, but that was the best war game buy-in I've ever had. It'll never be topped again.
Yeah, somebody got downtown.
So I passed away,
like
and then my wife.
$50.
Oh, I didn't pay $50 for that.
Oh, you're the one that bought downtown?
Oh no, not downtown.
Oh,
sorry,
someone
sorry.
got downtown really cheap. I know that.
Oh yeah, it was buy 3 for 50 or something. Like that. Yeah, they probably got 2 other games with downtown for $50. Folks, like I said, it was gonna be a short episode, but it was a fun episode.
Yeah, leave them wanting more. That's what I say.
We are leaving you wanting more. We're cutting. There's nothing off the table. There's plenty to talk about next month, but it is what it is. The one thing I'll mention is go check out Black Lodge Trivia Night for actual plays, general discussion, video game plays. Art's doing some fantastic material over on the YouTube, or you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast stuff. Go give it a try. I think for the first time this month, we'll actually have all 3 of us for our actual plays together. We did like a bunch of one-shots and low rules stuff as June and May were interesting months for all of us. But anyways, go check it out. Black Lodge Trivia Night, if you will. Rich, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
No, nothing else from me. I'll have plenty to talk about next month.
Well, folks, my goal is to edit this right away tomorrow, so this should be in your ears before 4th of July. So if you're listening to this as soon as the episode drops as a good hottie ought to, happy 4th of July. And we'll see you in August. HistoriKC Fest. Be there. Be square. Try to dethrone Bill Simone as last man standing. I dare you.
Well, I think my train leaves at 4, so I'll be sticking around till then.
Bill leaves on Monday. So.
Oh yeah, he'll beat me then.
It's not when you check out of the hotel. It's when you walk me out of the building as the last person.
There you go.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. If you want to come hang out with us, join our Discord. There's a link down in the show notes. I don't know. Twitter is what it is. I ain't logged on all month, but we're there. I put out stuff. Yeah, Discord's the best spot. Sometimes on BGG.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Find us on Twistcord. Did I say
Twistcord?
Discord.
Twistcord. It's
Twistcord.
It's a Discord for your Twister meetups.
I had a Irish coffee while we were talking tonight, and there was a lot more Irish than coffee in there.
Oh, very good. Very good. Awesome stuff. Rich, I enjoyed it. Everyone, happy 4th. Thanks.
Happy 4th, and thank you everyone for listening. Hit me up for a game.
Wilderness War.
Well, we'll talk.
Good night.
Bye.